Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to day 2 Eurobike 2025 in Frankfurt in this enormous abandoned atrium. So today I'm going to mainly focus on Hall 9, which is where all the kind of emerging Asian brands are. So all the stuff from China, essentially. So sort of my wheelhouse. So I'm going to spend a lot of time in there. I'm also going to hit Elitewheels Evolve, because I do want to check out that new frame again. And also, I think over at the L-TWOO booth, one of their suppliers has something for me. So loads today, let's crack on. Right, so one of the first booths that I wanted to hit this morning was one I got a tip off on, Lightcarbon. So they've got a pretty good rep actually. And apparently they've got a carbon bike frame that is definitely worth a look for the price. Okay, so this thing is pretty tasty looking, right? And it's, well, the kind of headline feature for me, the standout bit was, right, it looks like a pretty standard road bike frame set in a couple of ways, but the maximum tire size on this, it can take up to 38C tires, which is wild. And I asked about the cost for this. So the cost for the frame set, so we're talking, frame, fork, and seat post, just $700, which is pretty mental. So it was pitched as a kind of midpoint between road and gravel. So road frame sets these days, the latest ones coming out, have tire clearances for like 32s are quite common, and they've taken it just that extra bit further. So 38C tires. So they're quite a nice slimline, gravel tire on here. Really, I'm so interested in this thing because I'm not necessarily about all-out speed these days. So if I can, get some really nice chunky tires on a frame like this, that is definitely appealing. There are a few bits that are quite recognizable, I suppose. So to me, this looks like the Senicx Spear. So they've got what they call their wind eye at the back, and it's a similar cutout in the frame. This one, they've called their Eagle Eye, I believe. Apparently there's aero benefits, which I'm sure there are to some degree, but apparently it helps with vibration dampening, because presumably you're gonna be taking this bike on some quite rough roads, bit of rough tarmac. That is definitely very reminiscent of the Senicx Spear, no doubt about that. So for a 52 centimeter frame in UD matte, so no paint, is 980 grams. A paint job just like this one here adds about another 100 grams apparently. So just over a kilo for a 52 centimeter frame. Not exactly svelte, but then I guess that's not the entire point of this thing, right? It's designed for something a bit rougher. So I understand why that add a bit more carbon in there, make it a bit more robust. The bottom bracket on here is T47, which is a standard I really like actually. So that's cool, nice and simple. Means you can run Holotech 2 cranks or dub standard cranks without a problem. You got these little winglets on the side. It almost looks like recessed where the front brake mount goes on there. Just everything about this, really, really like it. I'm definitely gonna have to get my hands on this frame. Such an interesting concept to put 38C tires on a kind of what looks like a road bike frame. I reckon we're gonna see a lot more of this moving forward. They've got some pretty nice looking, quite interesting looking gravel frames up here as well. This one looks relatively standard in a number of ways, got a bit of in-frame storage there. This one, obviously very similar geometry, but they've got a weird linkage at the back there, just to bolt straight through onto the seat tube. So the seat stay goes on via a bolt, which is really strange. And this one, I think this linkage up here provides maybe a little bit of suspension or something for the rear triangle. I'm gonna have to ask. Right, so I asked about this particular model here. So in here, that's basically a rubber bung. I'm not sure if you can really see that. So essentially it just provides the rear triangle with a bit of movement. So obviously when pressure is applied up here, it's gonna push that, and this is a piece of rubber. Actually, here's that kind of rubber bung, a bit more up close, although I think this is kind of a plastic show model, but you can kind of see how it would work, right? A little bit of flex in there, goes into that rubber bung right here. So obviously massive vibration dampening, which is cool. And I imagine you can buy replacement rubber because bungs like this don't last indefinitely. They're calling it their micro suspension system. Same with this here. So you've got kind of a micro suspension. And I asked about kind of what this was for. She kind of explained it was to add some suspension dampening, vibration dampening. And apparently there's 20 millimeters of travel that this assists with. For the one that's matte black like this, less than $600 for frame, fork, seat post, and handlebar. A bit more with paint, but I assume when you contact them, and drop them an email. If you are interested, you'll be able to get a price. But yeah, the value with this lot, yeah, incredible really. Lightcarbon are still an OEM brand. That's the kind of basis for their business. But you can buy one direct to consumer. You can just buy one for your own personal use by emailing them directly. Really pleased I dropped by. Those prices are a little bit ridiculous. It has to be said. Anyway, yeah, if you want to get in touch, drop them an email. Right, let's see what else we can find. Right, so I've popped back to the Sensah, same company, booth, because they've got their new, is it the ECS? So that's the 14-speed electronic group set, and I covered it in Shanghai, but they've got a little bit of an update. Apparently a 2-by is in the works, so they'll come up with a front derailleur maybe next year apparently. So yeah, here's what it looks like. I kind of showed you it, quite SRAM red-esque in the design, and I don't think I showed this at Shanghai, but the buttons here, they're kind of rocker buttons. So you can see it rocks, it's like a paddle, a rocker button, which isn't that's kind of unlike anything I've ever kind of dealt with on a group set. But yeah, this is the one that I showed in Shanghai. So you got the 14-speed cassette here. Like I said, currently 1-by, they're working on 2-by. All right, just as a quick reminder, this is what the cassette looks like here. So this is the 14-speed cassette. So it is a 10 to 45 tooth cassette, which is pretty bonkers. And allegedly it will fit onto a standard 11-speed HG freehub, which is pretty nuts. Basically, once this Rode ECS comes in 2-by, that'll be really, really interesting. Either way, desperate to get my hands on one. There is no price announced for any of this yet, and they're not selling it. I think they're going to focus on OEM, but you will be able to get this as a kind of direct to consumer. This was announced at the show here at Eurobike this year. So this is the mountain bike equivalent of the Rode ECS system. So yeah, we've got the derailleur there, pretty standard looking, nice and chunky. And you've got here the blip shifter. So this is the one that'll sit on the handlebar, rocker switch there for up and down. So yeah, it looks cool. I mean, mountain bike, not really my scene, as you might well know. One last bit of info. So in terms of actually getting your hands on this group set, right? So they're going to focus on Chinese domestic market sales first. That's August this year. And then they'll look at overseas for this 1x14 road setup end of this year. And then for the mountain, you're looking at Q1 2026. So not long to wait. Yeah, exciting stuff. Right, SUMC here. It's a name you might be familiar with. They make, some pretty decent quality chains, actually. Over the last few years, I've started using them, and I have been impressed. And they're right here next to the Sentyeh booth I just looked at, because essentially they provide the 14-speed chain to Sentyeh, which is, kind of a world-first 14-speed chain, I guess. But they got a few other bits on display, so let me show you quickly. So they got this quite interesting one. It's like a half-link chain. Can you see that? Normally you'd have an inner set and an outer set, but they've bent a single kind of piece here and made a half-link chain, which I've not seen before. So these, they're for kind of BMX, track bikes, etc. So a lot stronger, allegedly, than a kind of a standard chain like this, where you've got the kind of the inner links and the outer links. Come in a bunch of different colors. That's pretty cool. They've got some really lovely looking flat top chains here. So they do them in SRAM and Shimano because the standards are a little bit different, in 12 to 14 speed. And they come in a bunch of really cool colors. I really like this kind of, turquoise and black one here. I've not used a flat top chain before, but they do look really, really wicked. So maybe I'll give these guys a shout. Maybe they can send me one. Interestingly, I was not aware of this, but the Shimano Q's group set actually requires a completely different chain. So the standard is different to like the other 11-speed group sets, like older Dura Ace, 105 and Ultegra, right? And they're these ones here. So they're the SP11 chains for Q. So even though Q's is, I think it's 9 to 11 speed. So even though it's 11 speed, you can't use, say, a 105 11-speed chain on your Q's group set. Like, I understand that they want to kind of partition those to the side because Q's is a very separate ecosystem, but to have a different chain standard just seems wild. So yeah, you do need a separate chain for Shimano Q's, and SUMC have got you covered. Got myself a little bit of free swag, a 12-speed flat top chain there. Pretty cool. Yeah, perks of the job, definitely. So it's quite funny, really. These guys are all partners. So Sentyeh, SUMC, and then these IIIPro, and I'm familiar with all of them separately, but they all work together. But let me show you some of the IIIPro stuff. So yeah, these guys, everything hydraulic disc brake with iPro, and their product line I'm actually very familiar with. So you got some mechanical disc brake calipers here. I have a set of these. I've tried them quite extensively. Yeah, pretty impressed with those. Got those on AliExpress. And yeah, these as well, I'm very familiar with. So I did a video very recently on these. They went from iPro, from Z Race, but they're almost identical in the construction. So yeah, I was very, very impressed with them. A flat mount 4-piston caliper on a road bike. The braking performance with those is absolutely nuts. So yeah, they're definitely worth a look. But you can find all their stuff on AliExpress. So these are pretty cool. Again, a mountain bike, not really my bag, but yeah, super lightweight, apparently 75 grams each, which is pretty nuts. Feels nice, but yeah, in a loads of different colors as well. So yeah, IIIPro, I can vouch for their stuff. I've used a lot of it. And it comes in funky colors as well. That's a recent trend with a lot of drivetrain components from these Chinese manufacturers. You get them in some really wicked anodizing colors. Now this, I'm glad I didn't miss it actually. This is very, very cool. So you got these, then you got hydraulic calipers here. But look, so fully mechanical shifter, right? So this is a Shimano Claris, an older generation. Goes into this contraption, then you got hydraulic brake on the end. So you can do full, mechanical to hydraulic conversion, which is absolutely wicked. So you can see that pulls the master cylinder in there, and that actuates the hydraulic disc brake. So yeah, here it is. Quite a small piece of equipment. So I don't know how you really do. I guess that's a bleed port there, and you've got a little reservoir. But I asked, apparently the price for 2 of these and both calipers is $90. So not bad at all. Apparently you can get them on AliExpress coming soon. I'm going to try and get my hands on a set of these. I think he said he'd send me them because that is absolutely wicked. I love little quirky braking setups. I guess the question arises, where would you stick these on the bike, right? I mean, you could put them underneath the handlebar, potentially, right? I mean, it was Giant did the conduct system, which was a faceplate that you put on the front of the kind of stem, and that had a similar setup, right? So you put the mechanical wires in, it would pull a master cylinder, and then it would transfer that to hydraulic brake caliper. So very similar, but these are obviously 2 separate units, so you can kind of stash them on the bike. Maybe you could fit them inside the bike somewhere if you went up through the bottom bracket. But regardless, what a cool little piece of tech from this company. So yeah, I was chatting away, and they actually gave me the set they had on the stand, which is absolutely wicked. I'm gonna fit these as soon as I can. But yeah, absolutely awesome. So you'll see these on the channel coming very soon. What a cool bit of kit. They've also got a brake lever here for TT, which is pretty cool. So all aluminium construction, aluminium brake lever there, feels really premium. Feels nice. Obviously the brake lines are very, very short, so it's gonna be bled perfectly. But yeah, that's kind of a theme I find with the iPro stuff. Like, everything is really well made. Like, it's all machined aluminium, very few plastic parts, and the stuff lasts. I've had the iPro stuff on bikes for a number of years and never had any real problems. But yeah, TT brakes as well. Right, so again, I'm hitting all 4 today. So Sentyeh, SUMC, iPro, and now Senicx. So this is a brand I'm quite familiar with. I've used a couple of their cranksets before. These are the ones I generally recommend to people when you want a crankset that's relatively, very reasonably priced and bulletproof as well, because the Senicx cranksets I've used have just been absolutely rock solid. So they're a little bit heavier than some of the other cranksets out there, mainly because they use quite solid carbon crank arms, and the axles, if they're Holotech, tend to be steel as well. So yeah, these guys are developing the crankset for the Sentyeh. So we've got the crankset Sentyeh, SUMC chain, iPro for the brakes on that group set, and then these guys at Senicx, they're doing the crankset. So it's kind of a partnership between all 4. They also do some bottom brackets, which I wasn't aware of. They look pretty decent. So I'll try and get hold of one of those and check them out. But yeah, all of these are aluminium. They've got loads of different types, obviously. So you'll be able to find all these on AliExpress. And like I said, they're pretty reasonably priced. I asked about a carbon crankset. They haven't got one now, but apparently they're working on one, which is pretty cool. So good to get my hands on that. But yeah, Senicx, definitely a brand I can recommend actually. Look at this thing I just stumbled across. It's like an e-bike snowmobile. So you can see it got a belt drive on here for the rear wheel. Got the standard kind of drivetrain here. massive battery, and then you've got suspension shocks at the front with like a skidoo ski plate on it. Yeah, that is absolutely wicked. I've never seen anything like that before. Looking at this in a little bit more detail as well, you've got, well, this is a kind of pivot mechanism, right? So this pivots at the back, and then you've got a shock here. Looks like one from like a bonnet piston or something connected to the seat post. So yeah, you get a bit of suspension in it as well. So I saw this booth behind me, Fi.Bi.Tech, and it caught my eye because the frames on here, obviously I deal in a lot of carbon fiber frames. Carbon fiber isn't really recyclable, so it's not fantastic for the environment, honestly. These guys use a polymer plastic that is apparently 100% recyclable. So this is an example of the finished product. It's obviously kind of not exactly race machine. It's going to be a much heavier frame ride, but it is impressive that the frame is 100% recycled. So you can see this is what it looks like in its bare form, just injection molded polymer essentially. But they've got this quite cool process I've not seen before. You can see these parts as smooth, right? So this is where it's kind of injection molded, and maybe it'd have a form in here to keep the surfaces clean. But yeah, look at this. Can you see? It almost looks like kind of, I don't know if you've ever eaten like bone marrow, when you get that out of the bone to like put it on bread or whatever. That's what it kind of looks like, loads of ripples in there. And there's a black one as well, so let me show you. This is one they've impregnated the same polymer with carbon fiber, so carbon fiber reinforced plastics. Very similar, I imagine, to things in like cleats. That's often carbon or glass fiber reinforced. So this is carbon reinforced, and allegedly, even with the carbon in there, it's still 100% recyclable, which is cool. But yeah, you can see here, in a bit more detail, this channel. And the reason it's got all these ripples is because they use a water injection molding process. So you can see here, yeah, injection molding with water injection technology, which I'd never heard of before. Apparently, when they put the plastic in there, they put water, they inject water in so that it kind of cools then from where it crystallizes from the outside in, allegedly, increasing strength. But yeah, look at that. It looks very, very organic. I do wonder how they can kind of keep consistent kind of diameters on the tubing. You can see a couple of voids in the plastic, one there and one there, which I guess is unavoidable. I mean, even with carbon fiber, you still get voids and stuff. Yeah, again, like I said, it's not gonna be the raciest machine ever, but really cool to see, yeah, a bit of innovation. You can actually fully recycle frames, because yeah, like I said, carbon fiber frames, they're not recyclable. So pretty cool bit of technology. Actually, just while I was leaving, I inquired about the weights. So they got one on the front there. It's, well, a hardtail mountain bike frame, and they got the lights in there, and it's electric, so there's a battery compartment. That is 2.2 kilos for the bare frame. So it's not the lightest thing in the world, but you know, you've got to give them props, pretty cool tech. Right, I just popped into the OG-Evkin booth, and if you've watched any of my stuff over the last year or so, you'll know I do actually really like these guys. So yeah, let me give you a quick tour. So basically, I've got both of these frames. This is their long frame. This is their, what's called their Kionki frame. It's more of their endurance style frame. I've got both of them actually, and they are both really, really good. So yeah, this is their more endurance style frame. So you've got a little bit of compliance in the back, slightly thinner seat stays, really nice, comfortable bike. And then you've got this long frame. So yeah, L-TWOO. This is their kind of more race-focused aero-y frame. And again, I built a bike using this frame relatively recently. So they've got a cutaway here of the down tube. They've clearly taken a circular saw to this, kind of buzzed it out. But yeah, it's really cool. So you can see directly inside, really, really smooth walls on here. So they use EPS molding here to get nice, consistent wall thicknesses. Very, very smooth on the inside. Same up top here, so you can see really, really nice and smooth. Absolutely no wrinkles in there because yeah, they use EPS molding throughout for this frame. These are their kind of Turbo X handlebars, and I've actually got 3 sets of these on different bikes. I really like them, and the way they manage the internal cable routing is really nice. I actually used it on it was the video I published just before I came to the show, actually, where I did a steel frame build. I used this particular bar with, it was a non-integrated frame, but they include the spacers that you can kind of, fit it up. So yeah, I have a lot of time for this handlebar too. But yeah, OG-Evkin, I do really like this company. I've had a couple of little issues with some of their bits they've sent me, and they listened to feedback and they've listened to me and listened to the issues I've presented with them. So yeah, if you've got time, check them out. I do really like these guys. So I was just shooting down this kind of alley down the back here of Hall 9, and I came across these guys, Lightcarbon Europe, and they had a really interesting bike on display. It's obviously a mountain bike here, so not necessarily my bag, but the way they've kind of got it and constructed the frame is very, very interesting. So apparently this company, CDURO, they're known for carbon tubing, basically, and with that in mind, they've taken a really interesting route to constructing a bike frame. So they don't make or sell many of these. I think I was talking to the guy, they sold 10 last year, something like that. But you can see this is a mandrel wound tube here. And then rather than it kind of being produced in a mold, they wet wind these and kind of wind it round to bind it to the various tubes. So you've got tube there, tube there, tube there. This is the head tube. And you can see it's bound around the front. Such an interesting way of doing it, and apparently it reduces waste quite a lot, right? So when you're dealing with pre-preg, that's kind of how most carbon frames are made. Apparently the waste, did you say the waste was 15 to 20% on pre-preg?
15 to 30.
15 to 30% waste, whereas this is a much more economical way to produce a frame. So you can see we've got a tube here for the seat stay, and then it's got these aluminium lugs bonded in. Yeah, just a wild looking frame. Never seen anything like that before. But yeah, apparently they don't, like I said, don't sell many of these. If you wanted to get hold of one, you can give them a shout. I couldn't get a price because these guys, yeah, there's just the kind of supplies of the materials you can see here. Certainly an eye-catching design, novel way to put it together as well. Really cool. Also, while I'm just sat on this Travelator and I've got a second, I may as well mention, yeah, there are no sponsors for this show. I've paid for it all out of my own pocket, and no brand has paid me anything to be here. So if you could, yeah, drop a subscribe and maybe like it, that'd be really wicked. It does help out a lot. But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching and let's crack on. So I just popped by this booth, and yeah, these guys do titanium frames. This is a generic style that I'm sure a lot of you will be very familiar with. So just standard tubing, and then it's kind of welded up here, right? It's a very traditional style of building a bike frame. And then you've got this one. I mean, look at all these lovely curves they've got on the titanium here. I mean, it's unlike any titanium frame I've seen, that's for sure. So the way they've done it is with a kind of mix of traditional, titanium tubing. And then you can see here, 3D printed parts. We've got the head tube up here. This is all 3D printed. And then we've got a junction of top tube and seat stay. So this part's 3D printed. Apparently this and part of this is 3D printed as well. So they've kind of combined traditional tubing with 3D printing, which is cool. They've even kind of gone as far as to use titanium spacers here and a titanium top cap, which does seem a little bit extreme, but still going all out here. So I asked about price availability. So this is still prototype, no price available right now because they're still testing it. But yeah, just interesting to see what you can do with titanium these days. 3D printing is definitely opening up a world of opportunities in terms of design with these 3D printers, titanium frames. So just to kind of give you a kind of example here, this is a 3D printed part, right, on this frame. So that's it right there. So this part is 3D printed. It looks completely seamless, which is cool. So apparently the titanium tubing sits inside ever so slightly. There's a bit of a lip, and then it's welded around, smoothed out, and that's it. So yeah, seamlessly combining 3D printed titanium with regular tubing, pretty cool. Right, so I quickly popped into this booth here because I looked at these guys on the app and they had something I'd never ever heard of before. Maybe you have or you haven't. An eccentric bottom bracket. So I've got three variants here. So these are T47 BBs and this is a BSA, and you can see 24mm, so Holotech 2 standard, and then the SRAM dub standard. And if I show you here, you can see the axle is completely offset. And so basically you install that into your T47 bottom bracket, and then using a wrench, you can see there are holes around the outside, you can spin it and essentially change where that crank axle sits. So by rotating it in the bottom bracket shell, you can adjust the position of the crank spindle, which effectively changes the kind of tension on the chain without having to do anything else really. So they're designed for bikes with a belt drive, so you can change the tension on the belt, which is pretty cool, or single speed. If you've got a single speed bike with vertical dropouts, you're gonna need, one of these Eccentric BBs so you can set the chain tension exactly how you want it. Such a clever idea to solve, the problem of chain or belt tension. So I wanted to quickly pop into this booth. Again, I saw them on the app when I was kind of fishing for brands to look at. Jaeger Technologies, and it's this EL decal that I was really interested in. So it's kind of an electroluminescent decal you can put on your bike. You can see they got a demo here, right? And you can see it flashing on and off. And here's the battery pack. And these two lines here, those are essentially the wires. So that's a conductive paint, which goes up to the battery. So the obvious application I thought was, decals here, so your logo or whatever on the down tube, but you can use it for wherever. So you can see they've got it on the battery there, on the chainstay, and you can even get it attached to the helmet as well. So yeah, that's quite an interesting bit of tech. I guess the question arises, where would you actually house the battery, for example, if it was the decal on the down tube? But yeah, like I showed, you can just use that conductive paint and run that wherever, and you could hide the battery, I don't know, in the bottom bracket area or something. But yeah, really, really cool. It's not super bright on the shop floor, obviously, but I imagine in the dead of night, it would actually light up really well. So yeah, pretty cool. Right, so I'm just gonna pop quickly into the Elitewheels Evolve booth. I covered a lot of their stuff when I was in Shanghai. Their booth was about 8 times the size in Shanghai. So yeah, they're a kind of lesser known brand here, I guess, but still, a few little bits to look at, so let's have a look. So these are the Velo 6 Mark II wheel set, so it's a one-piece carbon wheel with 6 spokes. Retail on this is 1,300 buckaroonies, so not super cheap, but not crazy for a kind of a one-piece carbon wheel. I tried the Velo 6, the original Velo 6 Mark I, I suppose, and I found when I was kind of testing them, the lateral stiffness wasn't that great actually. Whereas apparently on this new Mark II, it's much, much improved. So they're gonna send me a set. I think it's in the post as we speak actually. So they're gonna definitely test those out. Another thing which is cool with this wheel set, basically the ratcheting system is new. I'd not seen it before, and apparently it's new for this wheel set. It's kind of akin to the DT Swiss style in a sense that you've got 2 plates with kind of ratcheting gears to engage, but you'll notice that one of the gears is conical. So with a conical ratchet, it meshes apparently much better. You get much more contact, much more surface area. So a better engagement essentially compared to your standard DT Swiss with just the 2 plates. And this is their cruiser bar. So this is the one that comes with the Evolve, the new Evolve. It's kind of bundled in with that, or at least it's designed to work with it. So yeah, the cruiser bar. This thing is just really, really lovely. So well produced. It's really refined. I love the fact that on these gear and brake entry holes here, it's a little bit wider, so it's a bit more of a kind of palm rest on there. Even the top cap here is really, really lovely. It fits in there really nice. The curvature is very consistent on either side. So yeah, just a really well put together bar. So it's 300 bucks for this thing, and 300 grams there or thereabouts, depending on stem length and width and stuff. The one thing I can say I'm not a massive fan of is a custom computer mount. So I'm not sure if you can kind of see, well, there you go. You can see there's a bit of curvature on it. So rather than the standard 2-bolt pattern with the bolts back here, they've put the one at the front a little bit further forward around that curvature there, which means you need this proprietary computer mount for it. But yeah, looks really lovely, very, very lightweight. It's all kind of skeletonized in there, and certainly looks the business. So yeah, I'm gonna be testing out the new Velo 6 II wheel set when they arrive, and when I can get my hands on it, I'm desperate to try the new Evolve frame here. It just looks really lovely. One of the updates they've told me about is, these new aero bottles. Not particularly exciting, but pretty cool, I guess. These are still in prototype development, but yeah, they kind of nicely hug the frame and make sure that kind of aero potential isn't lost with some like clunky water bottles. But yeah, you can see here, a medium frame unpainted is 650 grams, which is pretty nuts. So I've seen a lot of carbon frames at the show that have been close to a kilo, maybe over. So 650, yeah, it's pretty bonkers. But unfortunately, someone nicked one of the show bikes off the stand on Friday, which is not cool. I think while they were setting up, someone just took off with it. Right, I've just popped in to see L-TWOO, because as many of you know, I have quite a lot of love for these guys. I just think they're a really cool little group set manufacturer. They're not particularly massive. They're still quite a relatively small company, all things considered, but they pump out some really innovative, really cool stuff. So to give you a quick breakdown of the product line, right? They got the R series, which is mechanical road group sets. You got the ERX and ER9, which is their electronic road group sets, the GR, which is their mechanical gravel series, and then the EGR, which is their electronic gravel series. And this was a group set they released at the Shanghai Bike Show a couple of weeks back, actually. The ETX, which is their electronic mountain bike group set, right? So yeah, here's the derailleur here, right? So the battery in the back. So this thing can take, well, an 11 to 52 tooth cassette in either, yeah, well, 10 to 12 speed. But the really cool thing about this, and I mentioned it during Shanghai, is that you can pair this up with their road shifters. Right, so here it is in its kind of natural habitat, I guess you could say. So you've got the electronic derailleur here, let's wake it up quickly, make sure it's alive, and then you've got the blips on the bar, right? So, bap, bap, bap. Yeah, easy peasy, all good. But yeah, you could, if you wanted to, hook it up to road shifters, and you could do a wicked 1x setup, yeah, with up to 52 teeth on the back. So yeah, nice flexibility with this as well. But I mentioned at the beginning, one of the kind of partners with L-TWOO had something for me, and it's these guys, Z-Ray. So it's if I open it up for you here, yeah, a spider-based power meter, kind of akin to the Magine PS505, which I've currently got. So yeah, it looks nice. It's a kind of early release model, so I'm one of the first people to get their hands on it, which is cool. So we've got a spider-based power meter there, and interestingly, we've got carbon crank arms too. So yeah, carbon crank arms there with, I believe this is an aluminium dub axle. So yeah, I'm gonna get this home, put it together, and try it out. Right, I just wanted to squeeze in one last thing before we wrap up for the day. And I happen to be just passing by this bike. I've never heard of this brand before or anything, but I noticed that it's running Campag Super Record, right? Which is a group set that I've looked at in the past. I wasn't a particularly big fan of it. I thought it was a bit ugly, but they've changed the design. So they used to have 2 buttons here, if you're familiar. And I think they got a lot of pushback because everyone used to love the thumb shifters on Campag, but check this out. So right there, it's a little thumb trigger, and you've got shift there, shift there. Incredible. So I've never, well, I had no idea they'd done this, and yet there's the Campagnolo Super Record there. The front derailleur looks very, very similar to the way it always did with this huge battery there. And yeah, the rear derailleur looks like it's been slightly adapted as well. No idea on the price. I assume it's about 5 grand for this group set, but yeah, really interesting. And yeah, I do actually love the fact they've gone back to these thumb shifters here. Very, very cool. Kind of back to old school Campagnolo. All right, that about wraps it up for day 2 here at Eurobike. Yeah, saw loads of wicked stuff today, and that e-bike snowmobile was nuts. Anyway, yeah, packed day tomorrow as well. So yeah, gonna head over to Hall 12, which has got a lot more of the mainstream brands, but there are a couple of things I really want to check out. Classified, their hub, they've just released direct integration with Shimano Di2, which is wicked. Plus, I've never seen the hub in person. I'd love to give it a go. Hopefully they've got a bike on the stand where you can test it. TRP have got a new group set I'm desperate to look at as well, and I'll swing by Magine too. So yeah, stay tuned for that tomorrow. Thanks for sticking with, and yeah, see you later.